State of Cannabis.
This is the State of Cannabis News Digest, a roundup of this week's key developments in the cannabis industry.
It's Saturday morning. You're waking up, and so is the news. In just 10 minutes, get all the big cannabis stories from around the country. Fast, clear, nationwide. Subscribe and start your weekend informed.
Our top stories.
Medical cannabis implementation in Nebraska hangs in the balance as lawmakers weigh tight restrictions against voter-approved legalization. Oklahoma's cannabis market is facing scrutiny after a report highlights extreme overproduction. Trump's administration leaves cannabis reform off the agenda. Lawmakers in Connecticut are debating whether cannabis use while driving should justify a traffic stop, as the state faces growing concerns over driver impairment. A New Hampshire Senate committee voted to reject 3 House-passed cannabis bills. Florida's latest legislative push on hemp regulation targets THC drinks, synthetic cannabinoids, and retail practices, with a Senate vote imminent.
And now here is the deeper look at the key events in the cannabis world this week.
Minnesota's cannabis industry is facing turbulence just months before recreational sales are set to begin. Lawmakers are advancing a bill that would expand the operational rights of existing medical cannabis businesses, allowing them to grow larger quantities and sell to the adult use market. Supporters, including some lawmakers and medical cannabis companies, argue the bill is necessary to ensure a steady supply of products for both medical patients and new recreational consumers. They fear that without these changes, patients relying on cannabis for serious medical conditions could lose access to vital treatments. However, new license applicants, small business owners, and entrepreneurs hoping to enter Minnesota's newly legalized market warn that the bill gives an unfair head start to the established medical producers. Critics say this could lead to a market dominated by a few major players before competition has a chance to flourish. Medical patients, longtime advocates, and some cannabis production companies without medical licenses also worry that shifting focus toward the recreational market could eventually deprioritize medical care. The debate comes down to a delicate balance, ensuring reliable cannabis supply for both patients and new consumers, while still giving new businesses a fair shot to thrive. As Minnesota prepares to roll out adult-use cannabis sales, the decisions made over the next few weeks could shape the industry and its opportunities for years to come.
Nebraska lawmakers are divided over how broad qualifying conditions should be for the state's new medical cannabis program, approved by voters in 2024. Some are pushing for a narrowly limited list, while others warn that over-restricting access could defy the ballot measure's intent and fuel future pushes for full recreational legalization. Lawmakers are racing to pass LB 677, the bill that would set the program's rules, before July 1st. That's when the newly created Medical Cannabis Commission officially takes over licensing, and without a framework in place, the launch of patient access and business licensing could be delayed indefinitely. Debates over qualifying conditions, product types, and methods of consumption continue to slow negotiations. Advocates warn that if the program is too restrictive, it could be setting Nebraska up for a bigger legalization push as early as 2026.
A recent report from a joint Oklahoma and Texas task force has Oklahoma's lawmakers sounding the alarm over massive marijuana overproduction in the state. The findings show Oklahoma is producing more than 30 times the amount of cannabis it needs. With a vastly larger number of growers and dispensaries per the number of patients compared with the neighboring states, federal and state authorities are now investigating the potential for illicit trafficking outside the state and urging legislative reform to tighten regulations on the state's cannabis industry. And now, a word from our partners.
Cannabis testing is serious business, and having the right lab set up is key. Whether you're launching a new facility or upgrading an existing one, Coffee Pot Consulting provides the expertise you need. With over 15 years' experience of owning and operating independent cannabis laboratories, they can connect you with top industry specialists. Get started today at coffeepotconsulting.com.
Connecticut lawmakers are debating a controversial proposal that would expand police powers during traffic stops where cannabis use is suspected. House Bill 7258 would allow officers to pull over drivers if they both see someone consuming cannabis and smell burnt marijuana. A change from current law, which prohibits stops based solely on cannabis odor or visible use. Law enforcement groups backing the bill argue it's a necessary step to prevent impaired driving. The bill would also require a state-led study on setting a legal blood THC limit for drivers, similar to standards in states like Colorado and Illinois. But critics, including civil rights groups and cannabis advocates, warn the measure could open the door to racial profiling and unconstitutional searches. They also point out that THC levels in the blood are poor indicators of real impairment, especially for regular cannabis users.
New Hampshire's push for cannabis reform has hit a roadblock. A state Senate committee voted to reject 3 marijuana-related bills that had already passed the House, including proposals for recreational legalization, home cultivation for medical patients, and expanded access to hemp-based cannabinoids. Advocates say the decision ignores public support and leaves the Granite State as the only one in New England without legal adult-use cannabis.
Pennsylvania is moving closer to legalizing recreational marijuana. Governor Josh Shapiro has included legalization in his 2025 to 2026 budget, and House Democrats say they're ready to pass a bill. They argue it could raise millions in revenue and keep money from flowing to neighboring states where cannabis is already legal. But with Republicans controlling the state Senate, passing a bill will require bipartisan support. Public polls show nearly 70% of Pennsylvania's voters favor legalization.
Maryland is set to expand its cannabis laws. Lawmakers have passed a bill that would let adults make marijuana edibles and non-solvent concentrates at home. The same bill also gives people serving long prison sentences for cannabis crimes a chance to ask for reduced sentences. Governor Wes Moore is expected to sign it into law soon. The Michigan Supreme Court has ruled that the smell of marijuana alone is no longer enough to justify a vehicle search. The decision, issued this week, reflects the state's 2018 legalization of recreational cannabis and overturns a 25-year precedent. The court found that while marijuana remains regulated, its smell doesn't automatically mean a crime is taking place.
Florida lawmakers are moving forward with a bill that would ban synthetic cannabinoids like Delta-8 THC and tightly regulate THC-infused beverages. The legislation, known as Senate Bill 438, includes THC caps, child safety rules, and retail restrictions, aiming to bring more oversight to the growing hemp market. The proposal now heads to the Senate floor for a full vote.
President Donald Trump has appointed journalist Sarah Carter as the new director of the Office of National Drug Control Policy. Carter, known for her reporting on drug cartels, has also voiced support for medical cannabis, calling it a fantastic treatment for serious illnesses like cancer, a stance rarely seen in federal drug policy leadership. Yet, despite Carter's appointment and Trump's earlier campaign promises to support marijuana rescheduling and cannabis banking reforms, the administration has now confirmed it will take no action on cannabis policy. In early April, a White House official stated that no action is being considered at this time, marking another failed election campaign promise from Trump's 2024 run. Trump had previously urged Congress during the 2024 transition to include cannabis banking protections in federal funding legislation, a push that ultimately failed. Since then, key appointments at the DEA and HHS reflect a hardline stance, and the cannabis rescheduling process launched under President Biden remains frozen. For the cannabis industry and medical marijuana advocates, Carter's personal support for medical use offers a glimmer of hope. But with the administration abandoning promised reforms, businesses and patients remain trapped under outdated federal restrictions and mounting financial hurdles.
Don't scroll for hours to stay in the know. We've done the work for you. Every Saturday morning, we break down the national cannabis news into one quick 10-minute episode. Easy to follow, hard to miss. Subscribe now and never fall behind.
This was the State of Cannabis News Digest, available weekly. You can listen to us on all main podcast platforms. To make sure you don't miss out on the latest updates and in-depth analysis of the cannabis industry, be sure to subscribe. By subscribing, you'll get notifications for each new episode, helping you stay informed and ahead in the ever-evolving cannabis market. Join us next Saturday for more insights. Until then, keep thriving and stay green.